It is a staggering reality that the built environment is currently responsible for roughly 40% of all global carbon emissions. This massive footprint forces real estate investment trusts, or REITs, to treat decarbonization as a core requirement for financial survival, separate from any regulatory compliance. Researchers analyzed 6 years of data across 375 publicly traded REITs in 21 economies to measure the exact financial return of these environmental upgrades. This scatterplot of carbon emission intensity against profitability shows lower emissions correlate with higher profitability, specifically expanding margins and equity. Drawing a best fit curve confirms this baseline. But comparing a highly efficient secondary market portfolio to a Tier 1 metropolis portfolio reveals a stark geographical divide. While the baseline rule holds true on average, the data hides a severe counterintuitive divergence regarding where these financial returns actually manifest. The financial return on decarbonization is significantly weaker for REITs headquartered in major urban agglomerations. The data suggests spatial context dictates green financial outcomes. Being in a prime urban location may actually suppress the expected profitability of green tech. This baseline curve shows that the relationship between decarbonization and profitability is a curve of diminishing returns. Basic energy efficiency yields massive margin expansion early on. Eventually, the curve flattens, as pushing toward absolute zero emissions requires massive capital outlays with lower marginal returns. When the master dataset is segmented strictly by the location of the REIT's headquarters, the math splits. A steep blue curve for non-urban REITs shows a 1 kilogram emission reduction yields a massive 13.1 percentage point increase in return on equity. Conversely, the red curve for urban agglomerations flatlines, as that exact same efficiency gain yields a statistically insignificant financial bump. This widening gap is the urban green discount. It is driven by 3 specific structural frictions unique to dense city centers. The first structural friction suppressing urban REIT profits is the rapid loss of environmental differentiation. In isolation, a single green building in a dense market commands a high value premium. But strict city regulations force competitors to adopt similar practices simultaneously. As this green tech spreads, the unique value premium above our first building plummets. PropTech and green certifications quickly transition from a unique competitive advantage into a baseline legal expectation, meaning a single building's expensive upgrades no longer justify higher rent to prospective tenants. Investors in prime urban markets also prioritize location prestige and market liquidity over environmental attributes, diluting the value of the green upgrade even further. When every building on the block is smart and green, the financial premium for sustainability drops to zero, representing a sunk cost for the urban REIT. The second major structural friction we observe is the brutal, elevated cost structures that are inherent to Tier 1 urban agglomerations. Operating in a city center means absorbing severe land constraints, premium labor rates, and incredibly complex municipal compliance layers. Look at the return on invested capital for 2 identical retrofits. The capital required to execute the upgrade is vastly higher on the urban side due to the massive stack of compliance and space premiums. These compounded urban expenses drastically extend a payback period for any green energy investment. Urban businesses are forced to balance these spiraling compliance costs against the diminishing proportional returns we observed on the baseline curve. An urban REIT can achieve the exact same environmental milestone as a non-urban peer, but the bloated cost to achieve it wipes out the resulting margin expansion. The final structural friction involves systemic grid constraints and the critical distinction between Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions. Scope 1 refers to the direct emissions originating from the building itself. Scope 2 are indirect emissions tied to the purchased electricity powering the facility. The massive profitability spike seen in non-urban REITs is almost entirely driven by their ability to slash Scope 2 emissions. Dense urban REITs are physically locked into legacy municipal power grids, making them vulnerable to systemic inefficiencies and dirty city-level power generation. Non-urban REITs, however, possess the sheer spatial flexibility to adopt completely localized, independent clean energy solutions across their expansive properties. Bypassing the municipal grid allows non-urban portfolios to control their energy procurement, translating clean energy directly into operating cost dominance. Urban agglomerations force buildings to share systemic environmental failures, while spatial isolation allows non-urban assets to independently engineer their own financial upside. Returning to our split curve, the spatial context of a real estate portfolio rewrites the math of sustainable finance. Urban agglomeration creates a density trap, a web of standardized competition, bloated costs, and grid lock-in that punishes traditional green retrofits. To break this density trap and recapture lost margins, urban REIT managers must look beyond standard physical retrofits to advanced technological optimization. The study identifies artificial intelligence as a specific pathway to narrow the performance gap in these dense urban settings, helping to counteract structural disadvantages. AI-driven systems generate micro-efficiencies through predictive maintenance, hypergranular emission monitoring, and automated real-time resource optimization. These digital overlays require less physical space, bypass legacy grid constraints, and provide a new layer of differentiation that the wider market has not yet standardized. Portfolio managers must model these exact spatial frictions before deploying capital into ESG initiatives. You can operationalize these strategies for your own specific portfolios using the Green Investment AI tool available at plinthos.io. For deeper research, analytical frameworks, and continuous insights on the intersection of AI, real estate, and sustainable finance, visit sherryshu.com. The future of real estate alpha rests with managers who prioritize the interplay between geography and technology to manage the true cost of carbon.